Right, guys, we're back here again this week. We'll discuss the games of the weekend. Obviously, there's the big ones. We fans anyway. Roscommon and Galway in Connacht, Kevin Armagh in Ulster, and obviously Stevie's team down the result against Donegal. And we look ahead to next weekend's games as well. So, Stevie, I'm laughing here because obviously off air we're having a bit of crack. Yeah, down or back, baby.
As you said to me, as you said to me before, just settle. Listen, it was a significant win, obviously for Down. It's probably Down's most significant win in the Ulster Senior Championship. From when, hard to remember, maybe 4 or 5 years, maybe it's a huge win. Obviously, they've beaten a Division One team, and which is no feat now. Saying that, Down deserve a huge amount of credit. Conor Lavery had the boys very, very well organised, very fit. Played a very, very stringent counter-attacking game. Got a lot of bodies back. Conceded, I would say, probably over 90% of the kickouts to Donegal.
Did they? Okay.
Oh yeah. Very, very content to do that. Got a bit of pressure on in the middle third. And relied on a really hard direct running game. Then look, there was a few championship sort of debuts. Young Danny McGill from Burn made his senior debut. I was just sort of thinking forward, like it was a big step for a young player like that, but he performed really, really well. And I think one of the biggest things that probably ended post game was Pat Haver, where he spoke in his interview about how Laverty has given them a lot of belief. And I think that's something probably that has never really been a factor for Down people, because Down have that historical swagger of the way, and there's a confidence and an aura with Down teams. But I suppose over the last couple of years, Paddy Tally's last year in particular, a heavy defeat by Donegal. Jane last year, obviously his hands were tied. It was a very late start, and actually what Donegal reminded me of this year was exactly where Down were last year. No manager appointed until the very last minute. No matter what anybody says, and you need to be well prepared for inter-county football these days. You need to have your work done. You need to have a lot of work done early. And if you don't have that work done early, you will be found out. You'll pick up injuries. You'll not have momentum. I thought Donegal on Sunday were they weren't hugely organised from an offensive point of view. They didn't really have many ideas. Physical conditioning, I thought they were well below par from what you would expect from a Division One team. Intensity levels weren't at the levels where I thought they would be at, and spirit and togetherness. As soon as Down cranked it, there just seemed to be a nearly an acceptance, like, this is happening, like, and just take it, and it's worrying times for Donegal. I was chatting to a few Donegal people after the match, like, and they were saying that it's obviously one of the darkest days or one of the darkest moments in a long time. But then you go back to 2010, and I'll always have those images in my head of watching Donegal playing Armagh and Crossmaglen, and poor John Joe O'Hurley, players didn't fancy him as a manager, and as he was walking off the field, there was players behind him laughing, and they'd just been beaten by Armagh by 13, 14, 15 points. McGuinness came in. Ironically, obviously, McGuinness is involved with ourselves this time, but McGuinness came in and, completely transformed that group overnight, and all that probably was a mentality switch, and you've probably got to ask yourself the question, and yes, a manager is important, a coach is important, but ultimately it's what the fucking players do, and how the players respond. Players are very, very fickle nowadays, very, very fickle. And I just felt, that Donegal players had a responsibility there as well. And maybe the quality just wasn't on the field. But certainly trying to patch things together in the space of 3-4 weeks since they get relegated, with the departure of Paddy Carr, with the nonsense going on in the background a bit Lacey, the whole Jim McGuinness thing being involved with Down and stuff, like, it was a shitstorm, and Down actually just entered the storm at the perfect time and got a fantastic result and head into Sunday now with a lot of confidence.
So just get back to, obviously, McGuinness is kind of the headline name there. Like, what's his, like Laverty is obviously a very young manager, and I'm absolutely delighted for him, and delighted for Down, to be honest, because the more competition goes for, the better. But with McGuinness, is he a coach, Stevie? Is he there every night, or what's his role exactly?
No, well, listen, look, obviously, Connor's come out in the media and told the media a very diluted role. He'll come in and take a few sessions, obviously, but obviously not there all the time. But
Okay.
look, from a mentality point of view, for a lot of young players in that squad, obviously to have a man of his caliber and experience in at any time is a huge lift and a huge boost. But it's also from a psychological perspective. A lot of Donegal people probably thinking, why is he not with us? If he offered his services to the county, and that this so-called dream management ticket had offered their services and they were turned down, then there's obviously major question marks need to be asked of the county board in Donegal and what went on. But look, I think it's probably unfair to spend too much time talking about Donegal, because I think what the important thing is obviously from a Down perspective now, they go into Sunday's game against Armagh full of confidence. And I think the fact that every single member of that management team and playing squad will believe they'll win on Sunday. Every one of them will believe they'll win.
Where's that game, Stevie? Where's that game?
Game's Clonus on Sunday at 4 o'clock.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have to say, I just watched the highlights of that game. I have to say, Liam Kerr's goal. What a peach, man! An absolute the pickup.
And I've been watching Liam now since he's been playing colleges football. Liam went to a school, actually the school that the incoming president of the GA is the principal of St Paul's Basebrook.
Yeah.
And Liam played his school football out there. He moved from another school here in Down to St Paul's to do his A levels, along actually with a past pupil of mine in Kilkeel, Conor Clark. And I watched him play McCrory Cup football. I've watched him playing minor football, under 20 football. I've seen him in club action, obviously up close. He's broke my heart a few times at club level as well.
I bet.
An exceptional talent. Like, I'll give you an example. Last year we played his club in the first round of the championship, Burn. we probably threw the game away in normal time. It was 10-all at the end of normal time, or 12-all, I think it was, at the end of normal time. We were a point up, and Owen Murdoch kicked a brilliant score to take it to extra time. But Liam had been kept quite quiet, throughout the game. And what actually happened in extra time was they were a point up then, got into the last minute extra time, and there was a counter attack and just this blistering explosion of pace. And you could just see him getting further and further and further away from our guys. And he's probably one of the most explosive, exciting talents down, that there is. Like, and he's got raw pace. And that's one thing, and that Down probably have over a lot of counties, is to have those sort of pieces of individual brilliance that is creating a lot of goal chances for them. I still think we're a little bit one-dimensional with our attack. I think our attack is slightly a little bit one-dimensional. I think we're down to really progress. That's an aspect of their game that they're going to have to try and develop. I'm looking at the top sides like your Derrys, your Dublins. Looking at the width and the depth that they have, the cuts that they're putting, they're producing. The way they're moving the ball around the points in the forward line. We're probably still relying on a hard direct counter attack, or a piece of individual brilliance. And I think for the next, and it takes time. It'll take 2 to 3 years probably for Conor to develop that. But for the team to go to the next level, Down just need to add a different dimension to their attack.
Yeah, you were saying about the young lad, Danny McGill there, the wing back.
Yeah.
Was that his championship debut? Was it? Did it kick off?
It was Danny's debut. So Danny's from the Burn Club as well. He would have played in the Ulster under-20 team that won Ulster 2 years ago during the COVID times, under Laverty and Clark. So the lads obviously know him very well. Again, he's very raw and blistering pace. A lot of direct running from him, and it's something obviously that Laverty fancies in his team is a lot of really, really hard direct runners, the likes of Meatsy Rooney from Kilcoo, Danny McGill, Liam Kerr, Ryan Johnson. There's a lot of pace in the team. Even Pierce Laverty at cornerback likes to get forward. Ryan McAvoy is flexible, can play in a number of positions. So there is a fair degree of pace in the team. Even my own club man there from Mayo Bridge, obviously, who I'm managing, Shane Annett. Like, Shane's another wonderful talent as well. Shane's got that real fucking blistering pace that can just carve you open, and when you have that, like, it's very, very hard to defend against that, because the pace is coming from everywhere nearly, you've pace in nearly every line of the team. So, and then as well, obviously, the lads are obviously looking at bringing in finishers like the likes of young Andrew Gilmore, holding him back a little bit, and that's obviously key as well, because ultimately now in the inter-county game, that last 20 minutes when the game does tend to open up slightly, that's when you need real quality on the field,
Do you think, Stephen, now it's getting to a stage where is it, are the managers mindful of that, where this might not be my strongest team, as in, like, you might, I don't know, it's usually one or two, yourself going through it, there's usually about 11, 12, starters any given week, and then 2 or 3 maybe are just looking for positions. And is it the case now, do you think managers are thinking, right, this lad is probably going to be better starting, I'm going to hold this lad off coming on, in terms of, is it? Do you think that's coming into play here now? Because
unquestionably, listen, unquestionably, a finisher is just as important as a starter now, and it's the selling point for the player now, to sell that to a player. And, I noticed the likes of Davey there, for example, with Roscommon, what he did during the league, he was holding back the likes of Cox now and again, or a Buck, or a Doug Smith, or a Ben O'Carr, and springing them into different games. And, teams are starting to look at, like, where is the man who can change the game, or where is the man who can finish the game when the game is stretched? And most teams now are holding someone back, in reserve to really come in and make an impact, because that last 15, 20 minutes, and if you look at the way games are now, every game in the first half, and particularly Sunday's game, it was very Kilcoo-esque the way Down played, cat and mouse for the first half, and then the second half is that explosion of pace and hard running from deep, and the key, I suppose, is to have that option on the bench to bring in, because the most games of football now, and as you know, particularly in the first half, there's a lot of shadow boxing. The games are never really won in the first half, and that's the key, and I think moving forward, you'll see a lot of top counties now having those impact people on the bench, or those finishers, and that's probably hence why your deeper and your deeper squads and your bigger squads will obviously have an advantage there, an distinct advantage. Your Galways, your Mayos, your Kerrys, your Dublin, they're going to have a distinct advantage over other counties, And you look at Armagh over the last few weeks, probably, like, the absence of, Oisin O'Neill. I know he's out for the season, but the likes of Oisin O'Neill, Ben Creeley been missing during the league, Rian O'Neill at times, Andrew Murnan, and then all of a sudden you're dipping in and you're relying on lads that haven't played much football, and it stretches a team. So that there is only a handful of counties and that really have that strength and depth to contest on a regular basis. And what you might find as well is, particularly with the extra games in such a short period of time, it's going to stretch a lot of squads.
All about shadow boxing there, Stevie. The Roscommon and Galway game kind of reminds me. Obviously, Galway had I think it was an 8-3 lead at half time. The first half was a lot of. I think you tweeted about the 30 phases. Galway had 29 phases in the first half, and an Ulster. What Ulster game were you on about last year? I forget what. Derry
played Donegal. Derry played Donegal last year in the Ulster final, and it was the fucking death of Gaelic football. Like, no one had ever seen anything like this before, but yet someone had actually put a post on saying Marty Morrissey had said this is proper football, and you're just taking your head in disbelief. Like, but you're like, look, obviously from a Roscommon point of view, Davey will be obviously hugely disappointed and to have scored 3 points, none from play in a half of football, and especially at home. Like, and I know Roscommon people as well. Obviously, they have a perception around how the team should play. I think there was a big piece last year from one or two of their players, saying that it's the Roscommon way of playing. We like to kick it, we like to get it in, etc., etc. And there's a lovely romance behind that, but it's unfortunately not going to cut the mustard against your Galways, your Mayos, and I know they did get the win against Mayo in the first round, and we chatted about that, and we chatted where that went wrong, and I think it was a case of of a tactical lapse from Mayo in that first half rather than Roscommon going and winning the game, you know. And I think Galway would have learned a lot of lessons from that. But look, credit where credit's due. There was a real rousing comeback that got them in front at one stage as well in the second half. Something that they've been doing in a lot of league games this year, and you have to give them credit for that. You know, Roscommon teams maybe of old might have lost that game by 7 or 8 points. You know, and not put in a performance in the second half. But Kieran Murtagh was on fire. I think he ended up with 1-6 or 1-5. I think in the match as well. 1-6. Phenomenal footballer, brilliant footballer. One of Roscommon's top scoring forwards of all time. Like a brilliant footballer. You know, and I think a big part of the victory on Sunday and for Galway was last year's experience. I think that was a huge thing. You know, the fact that they've gone to a final, they've got down the stretch in the final with Kerry. Galway will unquestionably have their eyes on the All-Ireland title this year, and I don't see why there's any reason why they cannot be, you know, at the business end of things come last four in the end of June, start of July. You know,
that's a big one for me. Steve, you were saying there, Annie, like Galway's experience really came to the fore, especially in that second half. And when Roscommon came out and got, I don't know, 1-2 on Tron, they're a point up, and the crowd, the hype was hopping, and the momentum was with them, and the calm heads, you just slowly, they just, you know, got that momentum back to themselves again, and they kind of crawled their way back into the game. Like, so that was definitely a big plus if I was a Galway man here in terms of, like going forward, as you said, your Ireland final experience last year, because that game could have easily got away from them, an immature team. Obviously, they're 8-3 up at half time. They were cruising, and they're hit with a fucking absolute uppercut at the start of the second half. So they showed serious maturity, I thought, in the way they handled that pressure situation. I think that what kind of sums it up, like as you said there, Roscommon had 3 scores on the day. Like Galway had six different scores. I have to say, man, I mentioned Keane McKeown came out for Roscommon, man. He had 2 absolute dingers.
That's the Bull McKeown. No, the Bull McKeown, as he's called. Like, listen, the Bull's a fantastic footballer. He's from the Boyle Club. He's from the same club as Enda and Donny, and you know they've you know, he's a real powerful, I would call him a black spot runner. You know, he's a real powerful black spot runner, and you know, he's very direct. You know, he's very assured in his hard running game. And look, you know, a couple of things I would say to you. I think Galway, you know, at the start of the year, there was probably big question marks. I still think Galway have a question mark over number 1. Okay, they've got Power and Gleeson. I'm not sure who they fancy at the minute. Obviously, Power's got the nod. If there's a mistake in Power, do they bring Gleeson back? And I just think if Galway had, and this is no disrespect to Power or Gleeson because they're 2 good goalkeepers, but I think if Galway had a Niall Morgan or Rory Began, I think Galway would be a serious contender for the All Ireland. I still think they are, but I think if they had a really top class goalkeeper, Galway would be some force, really some force. And you know, and I think I was worried at the start of the year when they lost the likes of Silk and Kieran Malloy and guys like that, you know, and I was sort of thinking, Jesus, is this gonna, you know, is it gonna be a sort of a second season syndrome where they got to the final and became flat? But it's actually for me, it's gone the opposite. I don't think Kerry. It's like, I don't think Kerry look. I think the teams that have been beaten last year, your Galway and your Derrys and your Dublins, I think actually they look a bit more sprightly in at this stage of the year. And people are saying, "Oh, Kerry's peaking for an All Ireland, etc." It's a very fast season. It's going to happen very, very quickly, you know, and before you know it, you're going to be into the group stages. So you can't just turn form on and off, and you just cannot turn it on and off, you know.
No, you cannot. Like, the one thing I will say, I just listed out this Galway 6. I really feel Galway have really balance in their team, especially the forward line. They have, like, Matthew Tierney, wing forward, Peter Cook, centre, Johnny Heaney, wing forward. Like, Johnny Heaney and Matthew Tierney, in terms of the kind of roles of a half forward line now and nowadays, they are the definition of what you want from a wing forward in terms of an engine,
Johnny Heaney's a workhorse, and like so is Tierney, and you know, and Cook. Like, I tell you what it is, it's a very physical half forward line as well, you know. And a lot of athleticism in it as well, you know. So, no, unquestionably, and the big man in the middle of the field for Galway, Conroy's partner,
Maher, John Maher.
Big Maher. Sorry, Big Maher. Like he did a fantastic job, and Enda Smith, a fantastic.
He's a really good find this year, Stevie. He's been a really good find.
No. He's had a good season. He's had a good season, and that's the thing. That's the thing, and for counties like that, it's about finding just just a sort of a rough diamond, finding a rough diamond in the National League who's going to make an impact in the Championship. I think Armagh have done that with Barry McCambridge, McParlin, who came on against Antrim and scored 4 or 5 points. And ironically, young Turbo from the Clan Club in Armagh, he's playing the football of his life, and I think part of that was because he's had the opportunities, he's had the opportunities with Ryan O'Neill missing. Do you know what I mean? It's very interesting. It's very interesting that you're seeing some of these lads now coming to the fore in the Championship.
And just a final point on the Roscommon game, Stevie. If you're a manager now and you're looking at that first half, the difference between Roscommon in the first half and the second half, you'd be tearing your hair out here. Like what? Yeah. Like obviously Davey got them in. Probably gave them a good fucking bollocking, to be honest with you, and trying to get the blood flowing in them. But like as we both know, that you can only, that card will only work every once in a while. You can't keep fucking bringing out that card. Like, so he's gonna be tearing. Well, he's fuck all hair left, but he teared the rest of his hair out by this week with the fucking. It's disappointing because 1-9, 3 points in the first half. They really their energy levels just weren't up to it. It just looks subdued, and it just I suppose the question is how there's going to be a kind of a debrief this week. I'm wondering where the answers are going to come, where that first half came from. Just sort of way.
It's a lot of.
I'm sure.
I've been down that road. Down that road in the Hyde, and I've come up that road from the Hyde many a day, thinking the exact same thing. I remember going to play Kerry and in the National League, and 14 all. Got into the last quarter. It was the water break season. 14 all. It produced a phenomenal performance. Really spirited, full of energy, full of real hard tackling, real aggression, brilliant scores. Clifford popped up with a late goal and they beat us by 2 or 3 or whatever. But the following week going to athletic grounds and just producing, 5-1 up, cruising, and then coming out in the second half and producing just the arse falls out of it, and you're just going, where did that performance come from? The week before, played Tyrone in a challenge game and put 4 goals past them in the first half. You're going to yourself, and I just think they're one of those sides. I think Roscommon are one of those sides that you're just going to get a flaky game or a flaky half, and it's probably one of the reasons why Enda maybe they haven't just broke that glass. And listen, as I say, couldn't speak higher enough of those lads. They're great lads, and I'd love to see nothing more for them this year than for them to come out of the group, get a good run in Sam, and get to a semi-final, because I know they're craving that opportunity of a big game. But I just feel that they just don't have that real high level of consistency to put those big back-to-back performances together. And and it's probably a frustrating, it's a frustrating time probably for Davey. Probably scratching his head, going, after such a wonderful performance against Mayo, a strong National League, and all their National League games and in the Hyde, they beat Armagh, they beat Tyrone, absolutely demoralised Donegal. I think they kicked 20 odd scores. They had a fantastic home record. They had a brilliant home record in the Hyde. And those were 2 fine wins for Roscommon, just to produce that. But then look at the flip side of it too. It must be over 60 years since Roscommon have beaten Galway in the Championship in the Hyde. I think there's a statistic floating about. It's nearly 60 years since they've actually beaten Galway in the Hyde.
Okay. I didn't know that.
I would check that. I would check that out. But I know from 3 years ago when Galway beat us by 4 points down there in the Championship. I remember at the time thinking, fuck, that was a terrible result. And then when I looked at the historical background to it, I think it was something like 56, 57 years since Galway had actually, or since Roscommon had actually beaten them in the Hyde. They've beaten them in Salt Hill in the Championship, but not in the Hyde, know.
Yeah. No, big time. I suppose before we move on, special mention to Damien Comer, obviously. Kieran Murtaugh, the two of them. Yeah. Absolutely. Comer was an absolute beast. Physically, just ball winning ability. I thought Ian Burke, obviously, a bit of mention for Ian Burke as well. He's just definitely Ian Burke is probably just, we were talking about it before, Stevie, but it's underrated or underestimated how important that little 10-yard fist pass into the full forward line is, and to get the wing backs turning, facing their own goal, running back to their own goal, basically. Ian Burke is some man for winning that, and Comer as well, winning that
when
primary ball.
you have those men in there, and this is what I'm talking about, and when I talked about down earlier, the one-dimensional attack, when you've got the option of that little pop pass into a ball winner, a primary ball winner who's then going to become a pivot for a runner or whatever, it gives you so many different options. Or that ball winner has got an option of actually turning and burning, going one-on-one with his man, or feeding a runner who's coming from wide, feeding or even a decoy runner, taking a man away and him spinning and scoring.
Yeah.
There's so many different options to your attack with that pop pass, but to be able to produce the pop pass and integrate it into your play, you need a ball winner on the end of the pop pass, and something that I've said before as well, like what Comer's probably benefiting from is the high attention that Shane Walsh takes, like Shane Walsh obviously had such a glorious season last year, had a wonderful club campaign with Kilmacud, and he's got into games obviously a marked man, but the opposition's best player is going to him no matter what.
Yeah.
Then you have Comer, man, who's on fire, and it's a bit like anything. It's like, if you have a top team and the main man is obviously being occupied, and it frees up maybe a periphery player who's still of a high quality, like it's, you'd be scratching your head. Like, it's like the Dublin team in their plum. Like, you would look at their forward line and start your matchups, right? Where do you start? Do you match up on Diarmuid Connolly? Do you match up on Bernard Brogan? Do you match up on Kilkenny, who's the strings? Paul, who's going to kick scores from deep? What happens when McManaman comes on? Who's going to pick him up when they're tired? It's just there's just a head scratching job, and a lot of teams don't have those 3 to 4 really good man markers.
No.
So Galway have big options, big options, like, and then you have the likes of Finnerty as well to come into that as well.
Bench, Finnerty, McDade come off the bench as well. Obviously, All-Star.
McDade, another brilliant footballer.
Yeah, All-Star last year. Daniel Flaherty and Desmond Kennedy. They're the 4 subs that, like, we were saying last year, Stevie, with the All-Ireland final loss. Like, obviously Kerry's bench, we felt probably was the main difference in winning that game. Like, Galway were lacking in that department. Like, so as you said there earlier on, like, the league obviously unearthing some of the new players to come into the fold, come into the squad and challenge for those places. Like, and look, Galway are definitely going in the right direction. We put it like that.
100%, 100%.
The next, we say next Cavan Armagh, Stevie. What did you reckon of it? Obviously, like, fucking, what's the scores here? The tournament. Go on.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, well, listen, Armagh obviously started the game really, really well, and obviously they lost Barry McCambridge in the warm-up, big blow. He's been one of the best man markers in the National League. Obviously we know what Ethan Rafferty is about as a goalkeeper. He is obviously a huge asset for them getting out of defence. He's a huge asset for them to join in the play, because he's not. Yes, he's a manufactured goalkeeper, but he's also a top-level inter-county outfield player, and has been. So it's not as if you're putting in a lad in the nets who, you're trying to manufacture into an outfield player. This lad has played inter-county football out the field and is very, very competent at going past men, very competent at kicking scores, and very competent at delivering a pass. And it's like put an extra body in your attack. Armagh, again, I think have developed over the last number of years. I think their offensive play has become quite impressive, and I think it's going to be very difficult for Down on Sunday. Because you're having to plug so many little different holes. You're putting out so many different little forest fires. Obviously they need the likes of Rian O'Neill fit, Andrew Murnan. But what Armagh have, and this is something that people probably underestimate as well. Armagh have Jamar Hall. You could argue, Jamar is more of an industrious type player, but he's also capable of kicking goals. But Armagh have 6 scoring forwards. They have the likes of Rory Grugan, Rian O'Neill, Andrew Turbot, Conor Turbot, Andrew Murnan. There's so many different options up there. McPartlin kicked a lot of scores against Antrim as well. And, they have so many different facets. Stephen Campbell, obviously, back playing wing forward. They have a huge scoring threat from their forward line. And that's something that has impressed me. They've put in, obviously, they've added in the likes of Kieran Mackin, Barry McCambridge, who are very, very athletic lads who can tag men. James Morgan from Cross McLean, a hugely experienced defender. The Armagh's a good side. They're a good side. I think there's been a misperception about Armagh this year, and it sort of annoys me a wee bit when you hear that Armagh have gone defensive. They've gone defensive. They've gone defensive. Armagh haven't gone any more defensive than what they were last year. They haven't. But the problem in the National League for them this year was that when the wrong end of a couple of defeats, a narrow defeat against Kerry, a narrow defeat against Galway. If they'd have taken a point from either of those games, they'd still be in Division 1. There wouldn't be a word about it. I actually think Kieran McGeeney's doing a really good job, and I think some Armagh fans are absolutely I'd say, I'm trying to look for the right word to use, but I think their expectation levels just need to come down a slight. And I think they need to be a wee bit more realistic of where they've come from and how far they've got, because the level of consistency that they've shown over the last number of years, particularly in their league form, has been outstanding. And yes, okay, they haven't been shooting the lights out, but they got 0-21 or whatever it was against Antrim, and they got, what was it the other night, 114, 115, 114, 113?
Where is it? It was 114, I think it was.
114 against a team in Breffni Park, against a team who were runaway winners of Division 3, and who had one of the best defensive records in Division 3. So they went to Cavan and they posted 114, and to be fair, they left a few scores behind them later on as well, and then a couple of other goal chances. So I would say, and that's without Rian O'Neill.
Yeah.
Without Rian O'Neill in both games. So I would say Armagh are very, very content with their evening's work on Saturday night. Very, very content.
Interesting point you said there about the six score for it. Actually, on the Saturday, there's 9 different scores for Armagh against Cavan.
There you go.
So it was obviously Conor Turbot he had 7 points, he had 2 frees, but he's coming in to be honest with you, he wasn't really on my radar in terms of, I knew he was a good player, but I didn't think that he had that kind of game in his locker. The way the sidestep, the shimmy, the real classy. Go on, sorry.
He's a good player. I've seen him a few times. He's a good player, but I just my only worry about them, Enda, is the kick-out situation. That if a team down, I don't know if Down will go after their kick-outs.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if Down will go after their kickouts. Down might be very content to do what they did against Donegal and drop off the large majority of kickouts, okay, and try and hit them on the counter-attack, because ultimately that's a big part of Down's game is drawing opposition out and look for your strike runners in behind. I don't know if Down just fully trust what they have around the middle of the field at the minute to press a team, but Armagh will undoubtedly come up against better opposition later in the summer who will really go after Ethan Rafferty and go after him hard. And I think it's an Achilles heel for them. Mayo absolutely dismantled them in a 15-minute period in the athletic grounds this year. So I think kick-out strategy is obviously it's something that they're obviously maybe just going to have to tidy up on, find a different kick-out, find a little out ball, just find something different, because there is a period in games, and which worries me about Armagh, that they're letting opposition back into the game needlessly, so it'll be interesting to see how that evolves over the next few weeks.
Well, was it just me, or was it Ethan Rafferty? The Cavan lads were really giving it to him on Saturday. He was being targeted a good bit off the ball, wasn't he?
Yeah, and I suppose that comes with the territory. When you're coming out the field, you're probably thinking, hammer the hammer, and he's a big energy line for them, and maybe it was a case of putting a little bit of doubt into his head. But as I said before, I think Ethan's a tough enough boy, and he's well fit for that crack, But
you're on about the way Armagh is attacking now. It's no different from last year. Actually, the goal they got, the pan goal, was from a counter attack, wasn't it? It was transition. Yeah. So it's literally everyone literally behind. You could see it from the telly. There's no one up top. Literally, there was 50 men. They turned over the ball, and the whole lot of them, just as you said, strike runners. There's 6 or 7 of them coming after each other, and it was a really good team goal. Really good, I have to say.
Yeah, you see, there was probably a misperception about Armagh. Armagh are brilliant when they kick the ball in, etc., etc. But how can you kick the ball in against Galway in the championship whenever Galway are sitting with 12 men behind the ball and 2 sweepers either side of the D? You can't do that, And the couple of times that Armagh have mixed their game up, yes, they have a joy, but if you're playing the one way all the time, you're going to be very predictable, and that's the one thing they've probably tried to develop in their game is mixing their game up a good bit, between a kicking style and a running style. It's just trying to get that balance. And I think Dublin, although like it was hard to judge on Sunday, like Laois they were.
I actually thought it was an underage game. I don't think I've ever seen a team score 13.
Embarrassing. It was actually embarrassing. I don't know what's going on down there in Laois, but I know they have a high opinion of themselves. But I think it was embarrassing, absolutely embarrassing. It really was, But you could see, but outside of that, you could see elements of Dublin's what you would call the new Dublin, if there is such a thing. But you could see they were trying to kick the ball a lot more. That pop pass that you talk about, and then get the strike runners coming off Con and the likes of that. And I think that's an aspect of Dublin's game that they're looking to further develop. When they come into Croke Park, because they've probably realised when they played the likes of Derry, you've seen how much Dublin kicked the ball, and you've seen the success they had. Derry didn't kick the ball, and you've seen how much they struggled. So it's an aspect of Derry's game that's going to have to probably develop a little bit more as well, is incorporating a wee bit more kick passing into their attack,
And I have to mention this game. Offaly obviously beating Meath. You're
I'll mate boy. Slated me on the Sunday game many's a night, and personally slated me. And I remember one newspaper column he wrote as well that I always sort of look back on and chuckle and think, not as easy as it looks, column, is it? And the thing about it is, it's okay.
What was he saying over you? What was he?
Just a negative coach and all sorts of nonsense, and the team set up and blah blah blah, and usual old tripe that you would listen to. Well, I stopped listening to it because you don't listen to it anymore. It's freaking impossible to do. But usual old tripe that you would have to listen to, and listen. As I said before in this show as well too, and there's a distinct difference between playing and managing. A distinct difference, right? So as a player, one of the greatest of all time, a fantastic footballer, unquestionably immortality in his own county as a player. No one can ever take that away from Colin. No one can ever take that away from him, right? But managing is a completely different game. Playing, you're delivering a pass. In coaching and managing, you're delivering a message. And first and foremost, the players have to fucking believe in your message. And if the message is completely against the fucking grain, and a complete naivety in the way you play, players are going to lose fucking belief very, very quickly in that. The first thing you need to do, and Conor Lavery's done it with Down, make your team fucking competitive. Make them competitive, for fuck's sake. And don't have them sitting out, hanging out to dry, and taking beatings and taking wallopings like Meath did. And that's something that result didn't shock me. It didn't shock me. Delighted for Offaly.
I think we called it. I actually think we called it.
And I'm delighted for Offaly in particular. I'm delighted for the players, particularly after the tragedy of Liam Kearns, Lord rest him. But delighted for them, because it's probably given them all a big, well needed boost in the county, after such a really, really tough couple of months for them,
So, obviously, we're saying, where is it, after the game, obviously, Colin was quite frank in his assessment that we're obviously we're here, we're in the Tailteann Cup, and that's where we deserve to be. And I just thought again it was very negative in terms of just his interview. To be honest with you, I can't. McEntee got an awful lot of abuse in Meath, Andy McEntee, and he had them. He got them to the last 8, but he took a lot of abuse. So it'd be interesting in terms of how long they'll give Cullum here. In terms of usually we said this before, the first year there has to be some kind of some small percentage of improvements going in the right direction.
This is the thing I'm saying to you. I don't in every team. I can see a foundation being built and down, for example, right? You see a little bit of foundation, right? They have a long way to go, and the lads that are over the group will know that, right? They have a long way to go. I can see a little bit of what Andy is trying to do in Antrim. Okay, now they haven't had a huge amount of success, but you can see new managers trying to do great stuff, right? You could see what the likes of, for example, Tony McEntee was trying to do in Sligo, and it's obviously come to the fore now. It's taken a bit of time, right? But you can see it. You can see it, right? And you're just looking and you're just thinking to yourself, like, I cannot see anything with Meath. Like, I just see a naivety in their play. I see a stupidity in the way they're setting up against certain teams. And it just seems like, man, like the way they played against Dublin, he should have been chased out the gate for that. He should have been chased out the gate for that, to go in against Dublin. That, and it was embarrassing. And it was embarrassing for the players, embarrassing for the supporters, their families sitting watching that. To see a group of lads just being hung out to dry. He talks about all these new debutants and all these new players and all these. That's great. Well, give the lads a chance. Give them some form of a game plan that's actually going to make them competitive and give the lads a bit of belief. I'll tell you one thing. They won't win the Tailteann Cup. They will not win the Tailteann Cup. 100% Meath will not win the Tailteann Cup. I'll be shocked if they're in the final. That's the truth.
you always know when a manager's in trouble when he goes on about the debutants and the transition period.
And here, Meath has a lot of good. Meath have had some really good underage teams coming through in the last few. They have.
Meath have some really good players.
I was down to Meath. I think it was about 3 years ago. I think it was 3 years ago or 2 years ago down at the training centre, and I took a coach education session with their under-20s. And I'll tell you this now, they were mighty impressive, and a real good bunch of athletic, strong. Because Meath always have that athleticism and strength and power in their footballers, and it's disappointing to see, because Meath, you talked about Down, like obviously Down have a great history and a great tradition. Meath are the exact same. You need your Meaths competing. Like, people talk about Leinster and Dublin and the dominance over the last 13 years. But a large part of that is because probably the likes of Meath and Kildare, haven't stepped up. It's all right talking about Wicklow and Charlow and, and Waterford and these, or Waterford, not their Wicklow or whatever, and Wexford and these counties. These counties aren't going to get to that level. But Meath and Kildare can. They've got the resources, they've got the playing pool, they've got the history, they've got the tradition, and that's something that those counties need to be back. They need to be back at the top table. Like, they need to be.
We're saying this now for a long time, Stephen. Like, but it's fucking it's getting to a stage now. Like, they haven't been.
I'm going to throw something at you, right?
Go on.
I'm going to throw something at you. Jack Cooney. I don't think Westmeath this year have been as good under Dolan, right? I don't think Desi Dolan is nowhere near as good a manager as Jack Cooney, right? Jack Cooney was a brilliant manager. Jack Cooney maximised Westmeath's resources, right? Made them competitive, got them to Division 2, right? They were taking scouts in the championship. Look at what Mickey Hart and Gavin Devlin have done with Louth. You know what they've done? They've got a group well conditioned and well organised. That's the only two things they've done. They've been well conditioned and well organised. And like, it's amazing what you can achieve when you have that. When you have that as your foundation, just be organised and be well conditioned. And then you've got your stardust with the likes of your Sam Mulroy and Burns and these guys, and they've pulled a few rough diamonds, the likes of big Conor Grimes and guys like that as well. So they have a wee bit of, obviously they have a lot of quality, but they're organised. That's the big thing. They have organisation and they have a game plan. They have a kick-out strategy. Start with the basics, and when you make those gains, the world's your oyster. Like, your quality then comes through in the end, and you'll probably see the likes of probably why Davy has done so well with Roscommon, because he installed a reasonably good game plan in them. He give them a template which is going to make them freaking competitive. That's all you want. And then you have your little bit of stardust with your Kieran Murray, your Ben O'Carroll, your Enda Smiths. Those will win you the games. Those boys will win you games, But Jesus Christ, make yourself organised. Like, and Louth are an absolute credit for the pool of players they're from, the size of the county, and that's the thing. Like, if a Louth club team went to play a Meath club champions, you would expect the Meath club to beat them comfortably, or the Kildare club. You know what I mean? So. I think it's a perfect case study of what can be achieved when you have a decent management setup, you have an experienced group behind the team, and you're organised, structured, and welcome.
Is Jack Cooney with anyone now, Stevie, or is he taking the year out?
Jack Cooney, unfortunately, is not with anybody. He can't be with anybody because he's taken a big role in Croke Park. And I was chatting to Jack actually before Christmas at the Ulster GA coaching conference. and I was asking him. He that's why he had to step away from Westmeath. He took a big role. I can't remember the exact title in Croke Park, but it's a games and coaching, I think, role. But Jack's a brilliant coach. That day he took the session, and straight away I said to a fella, colleague of mine in school there, that we were down, both of us went down just to sort of pick up a wee bit of coach edge over the winter. And I said to him straight away, you can see why Westmeath, we're so well organised and so good, because he's a really, really good coach, real good operator.
Right, so we go prediction time here in terms of the games coming up this weekend. We have first we go on Inster first. Kildare, Dublin, obviously. What's the handicap here?
We could call it a one day. We could call it a one day international. We could just rename it a cricket match. We'll call it the 2020 cricket match, and Dublin to win with 10 overs to spare.
Yeah. Are you going
to? Unfortunately, it's double figures there again. I think the Dubs have the bit between the teeth, and I think Division 2's helped them blood a few players. They've got a few boys back. They're going to be hard to beat, big man. They're going to be hard to beat, boy.
I was selling. So someone was trying to sell me the league final a few weeks ago. Dublin now, they just don't look the same. And I was kind of smirking myself. Jeez, this is too early here now, lads. You have all stars. Football players come back here.
You see Cluxton coming back, right? Yeah. Cluxton coming back is a masterstroke, even from a coaching perspective. Yes. To have his leadership, his guile, his knowledge, his experience in that changing room is absolutely huge. And then and also as well, don't forget, if the change rooms aren't clean, like, he'll always stay behind and brush them and get a photo at the
end. I wonder, does he do that at home? The funny thing is, he probably won't do that at home. The business has to do it for him. Give it out to him. But anyway, right, we say Dublin. I'm going to say Dublin for probably 12 or more, to be honest with you. Yeah, probably will. Louth Offaly. Now, this is a dinger here now. Either team I'd love to see in the Leinster final.
If the game wasn't in Croke Park, I would probably say Offaly have a good chance. But I think the fact that Louth have played in Croke Park, in a against Dublin in a Division 2 sort of promotion decider. Yeah. I think that was the second last. No, that was the last league game. Sorry, it was the last league game.
Yeah.
League final was the following week. But I think that little bit of experience, having played in Croke Park, and they also played in Croke Park under Mickey last year in the Division 3 final. They beat Limerick in the Division 3 final. So they've had a couple of outings in Croke Park, and that definitely will stand them in good stead going into Sunday. So I would say Louth with a handful to spur,
And then right, Ulster down Armagh. Who are you going for here though? Where's that game, by the way? Oh, in Clonus. You said Clonus.
It's in Clonus. So I know the Newry this week now. There's a good buzz about Newry this week, because obviously half of Newry is Armagh, and we had a non-uniform day today actually, and our vice, one of our senior leaders, she's a lady from Shane O'Neill's, and she had the Armagh jersey on today, trying to wind a few of us up, nice. So whether she be wearing it next Monday or not now will be another thing. But no, there's good crack about the place, and it is actually a bit of excitement now. Obviously with local derby and stuff. It's been a long time since probably Down have gone into a game against Armagh. Really, really fancying their chances. So look, I just think if Down can get goals, Down can get goals on Sunday, I think they have a big chance. I don't think they're going to shoot enough, without the goals to beat Armagh. So relying on Down's goal threat. If Down can get a couple of goals, and just put a little bit of seed of doubt in Armagh's head early, I think Down have a chance. Yeah. But obviously all the form and everything would point towards an Armagh victory,
What if Down were to pull off the upset, Down in the Ulster final, fucking hell, that would be.
Yeah, it'd be the straw hats and the vuvuzelas back down to Clonus.
Yeah. Either team. I'd love to see either team in the Ulster final. I'd love to see. Yeah. It'd be brilliant to go. Yeah,
bring a lot of colour. They'll bring a lot of colour, and there'll be both. If Armagh are there, there'll be thousands at it. I think there'll be a big crowd there on Sunday actually. And if Derry make it, obviously, there'll be people flying in from all over the world to go to that, because it's been so long. Like, but I still think the other crowd lying in the background, Derry, are just too strong for everyone at the minute.
Yeah, so you're going with Derry Monaghan. Derry Monaghan, you go with Derry
Derry,
there.
Derry to beat Monaghan on Saturday. Yeah, yeah.
You give Monaghan a fighting chance, would you?
Oh, absolutely. Listen, Monaghan, and they'll not go down without a fight. But I just think tactically, Derry are a different beast at the minute. I just think they're a wee bit further down the line. One thing will be interesting now, and it's probably worth mentioning: the under-20 Ulster finals on tomorrow night, and Derry down obviously have Owen Murdoch playing, Ryan McGill, Paddy McCarthy. If them lads play tomorrow night, they can't play at the weekend, right?
Wow.
And there's a rumor circulating that Derry won't have their two players, Lachlan Murray and McAvoy. The Gallagher's going to hold them back for Saturday's game or Sunday's game. So it'll be very interesting tomorrow night to see if those lads do play.
Yeah.
It's a real pity because the GA talk about burnout and they talk about all this nonsense about growth and player development, but yet there they are denying two young lads the possibility of winning an Ulster title at their correct age group. And that's it's madness. Like, it's absolute madness.
It's I don't get me started on this now. This really annoys me, to be honest, TV. It really,
We're running out of time.
This is brain dead stuff. But anyway, look, but we leave it there. We'll talk about that next week.
Yeah.
That would be a 10-minute rant for me anyway. But anyway, look, good chat, man, and we'll talk to you next week.
Absolutely.
Right? Cheers,
man.
Go on,
man. Good luck.
See you
Good luck.